Doug has been kind of my mentor, or definitely an encourager to keep turning or get at it. So he decided to take off work for two weeks. He just said, I need to break the routine. So he came down to my shop, and I have a big, massive burl. I said, Doug, let's tackle this. First, I want you to look at it and tell me which way you'd cut it. So we mulled that over for a while. Then we had to sharpen my chainsaw because apparently I nicked something. And then we got it cut off, but boy, it was a massive piece. And I said, well, it's so beautiful, let's core it out. That was a mistake. That took the rest of the afternoon because it kept breaking off of the mount. I don't know. I know when you ask what's the best equipment, I have one of those wood cut coring devices. I don't know. It seems to catch a lot, and then really puts yeah.
They'll all catch if you're not using it right, Jim.
Yeah. And then Doug was being the engineer, and he was having to move it up and down 1/8 of an inch here, and I think we got it to a point where it's better off. I don't understand the way they made the chisel points on that particular coring machine compared to the way I look at other ones. So I'm learning.
Do you have any photographs, Jim?
Only of us marking and cutting the blank originally. Oh. And then we were just deep into it. I didn't get a camera out the rest of the day. It's still, we took one core out, which we got out successfully, and I have another one to go. I'm doing we were entering from the bark side, which I never have done on coring before. So it's been an interesting venture.
You know what you can do, Jim, when you're on the bark side, is just start an entry hole with a parting tool.
To
even it out. And then if you've got, depends on how much each wing is of the side, but if you make a starting point, then it's a lot easier. I've only done a few natural edge. I have a one-way coring system, and I think they benefited from the two things. One, wood fast. Is it wood fast? That was the first one, I think.
Wood cut.
And then the one way was done in conjunction with the fellow from New England. I forget his name. I mean, it was done I assume woodcut was done by Woodturners as well. But anyway, I think they benefit. And I think the one way benefits from the support mechanism that you have under the knife. And that lessens the vibration.
Yeah.
And now with the new, I haven't bothered with the cutters. I'm on my last legs. I mean, we're making plans. They're moving along really slow to get out of here, and the 2436 won't be coming with me. So,
well, I bought this because I thought the one way was a lot of horsing around. You had to keep moving that. Don't you have to keep moving that?
Oh yeah, but it's no big deal. You get a rhythm. You can knock off in an afternoon. If you've got your blanks prepared, you can end the afternoon with 25 blanks.
Yeah. Wow. See.
I mean, it's a production tool. I was like,
yeah. Well, this has the same kind of cutter, but it's only supported by the plate.
Yeah.
And so I watched when Doug was turning. I watched it. I could see the chisel going down.
Absolutely.
By the force. And I said, man, that's where one way had it figured out. It's supported right up to that cutting edge or thereabouts.
And it only takes 30 seconds to make that adjustment. It's nothing.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Maybe I should have looked closer at one way.
No, I was never a production. I would take the odd commission, but I cranked out a lot more bowls because I had the coring system, and it wasn't a huge investment as things go. So.
Well, on a burl, I wanted to keep as much of the nice wood.
Yeah.
I hate to see burl chips on the ground, so.
I live in Amish country, so I can make the entire family a bowl for their haircut monthly.
Jim,
You get a
Come
free
on.
haircut for that bowl?
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons for traveling.
That's Jim wants one. Jim,
Yes, sir.
I have the first version of the woodcut, and now they've addressed a lot of the problems that we're having with it, and they've come out with a second beefed up version. And by looking at the designing of it, I think they've eliminated a lot of your chisel drop problems that we had. With the first cut, woodcut version, I put a threaded rod all the way through my tailstock and put a wing nut on the back end to hold it in solid so it cannot move. And I found that made an improvement in the rigidity of how that cut. And the other thing is I found by moving the plate as close as possible to the wood that you're cutting gives you some more support, and even though it is at a slight angle, you're still working off the pivot point of the cutter, so you can get it right up so it almost touches. And those little variables made a big improvement in how you feed it. And I've also got a longer handle that I feed it in so I can feed it in slower, because there is some wood that is just fighting you all the way.
Can somebody mute everybody so the background conversation on the telephone isn't for the rest of us?
I can't do that. John hasn't made me co-host yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was counting on you to do it. There you are.
No, I'm not co-host. I can't touch it yet. I agreed, Doug, but I was looking. I can't do nothing. So now
You've been given the power.
I've been given the power.
Yeah.
I wanted to comment. Who was talking with me about that? You know, but the question of closeness to the blank, sometimes you have to be back because you want to cut a different arc. That's the way they control the width or whatever. And the problem with turning it from the bark side is you can't get as close because the natural edge is this way and that way, and you don't want to knock it off if you want to keep it. And this is keeping its bark real good. So.
When you use these coring things, do they make the same arc every time? And if so, would it be possible to take two adjacent blanks from the same plank, not burl or anything, and core out bowls at one set of dimensions from one and a slightly different set of dimensions from the other, so the bowls would nest tightly together instead of loosely together?
You can, John, to a certain degree. The problem is that if the diameter of the bowl your cutting gets too different from the diameter of the tool, the arc of the tool, then you get binding. So it's a small degree. So you almost need, if you want to do a lot of bowls, you either need a smaller diameter of knife or whatever. The McNaughton tool gives a bit more flexibility, as far as I'm concerned, in that respect. But
what I've been doing to make nesting bowls is I buy a large plank and just cut them all out of the same plank because I don't have a coring system, and I never thought I really wanted one. And I can make, I kid people, they look at my set of 9 bowls and they say, how'd you cut those? I got a laser coring system that cuts around curves, In fact, I just turned one to fit the next, that's all. And it's not that hard to do. It just burns through a lot of wood.
Yeah, well, that's the whole idea in my book of the coring system, is to get more bowls instead of dust on the floor, so.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
This is John.
John.
This is John. Yes. From the AAW symposium, Andy Cole does a demonstration on using the McNaughton system with natural edge.
Okay, that'd be
so that's going to be available up till, if you had signed up for it, it's available to September 3. I just earlier bought a McNaughton system, and I've been having the time of it. I've tried gluing a block on, that got knocked off. I tried screwing it, and that got knocked off. I first started with a using chuck and all that, and that, you know,
somebody who knows how these things work to come and help you. It's yeah.
There's no question that the McNaughton system's got a very steep learning curve, and there's a lot to do before you get it good. So the guys that are using it in a hurry and whatever have practiced and practiced. I don't know how many bowls and I've knocked off or pieces that have gone flying because of a catch in that system. So it was a matter of just sticking with it.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second just to do the housekeeping here. It's 10 o'clock. It's Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 216 for August 22nd, 2024. My name's John Kelsey. I'll be your moderator. If you're watching on YouTube, my email address is going to flash on the screen. If you want to join Coffee Hour live, you email me and I'll put you on the list. All you all on screen, I'm sure you know, but I'll remind you that Coffee Hour is sponsored by Lancaster Area Woodturners. It's free to any woodturner who cares to show up. We run for an hour every Thursday morning. You can invite your friends. Just forward one of my invites or links to them. And if they want to show us their stuff, they can bring it along and show it. I'm seeing 38 on screen today, which is about typical for a summer Thursday. We'll probably get a few more before the hour's up. Hope you all have got some stuff to show. I'm going to, since I'm talking, I'm going to hold the screen for a minute. I'm going to turn my background off. On the recent video of a couple of weeks ago, I talked for a long time about this stuff without ever actually showing any pictures, and it was incomprehensible, boring, and long. So I'm going to show you some quickie pictures to clarify for those of you who are interested, because I think I got a device here that'll help some people with some of the things they do. This is the kind of box I'm making. These are about 3 inches across, 5/8 or so, says 3/4 thick, with three pairs of magnets that hold it closed, so it's a loose fit. And these are end grain boxes. This one is maple. You can see there on the visible magnet the issue I'm currently having, which is I set the magnet into the wood so the magnets don't bang together because they're actually quite fragile. Then I need to fill the hole after I turn down to it. I put the magnets in while it's a rough. And I got to find the right super glue or epoxy that'll fill that up level. I've been using super glue, but it's tedious. I've ordered some super thick to see how that works. If that doesn't work, I'm going to go to epoxy. So this is what I'm trying to do. As the diagram indicates, the magnets are offset by a little bit. What they want to do is center themselves, and what I want to have happen is the box lid to click down with a click and not jiggle around. So if the magnets are centered and even a little bit of gap in there, then the lid jiggles and the box doesn't feel stable. Whereas doing it this way, it feels like it's going to stay, it's closed tight and it's going to stay tight in your bag or your pocket or whatever you're doing. These are for your Tic Tacs or your meds or your snuff or whatever it is you want to carry around all day. And I'm focusing on them because I'm just trying to get really figured out something small that I can learn how to make really, really well. This is the box I just showed the two parts of it open. You can see I'm leaving the layout line on the wood for the shakers. This is beautiful maple. Doug and I cut it. Doug led us to a tree that was down in 2020, and a bunch of us went and got whole chunks of this stuff. It's been drying in my shop ever since. This is part of the setup. The ram you can see in here, this thing here, is a plywood, it's a spacer. It allows me to use the tailstock thread, which is 10 to the inch, to advance the tool post, have the tool post be square to the lathe ways, and to advance it just by working the tailstock handle. So that's part one of the jig. Part two is the drill that's attached to this apparatus, and I'm going to explain it better in the next slide. Here it is on its back. The support here, this is a platform tool rest from Robust. I learned about it from David Springett's books. He advocates using these for very precise turning with little wee scrapers, which I used to use it for, but I'll get another if I start to do that again. But here I've bored a couple of holes and screwed it to a block of wood and mounted these drill things. Portable drill alignment devices are available on Amazon for about 35 bucks. This is one I've had for 1,000 years. And this is the drill I've had with it for 1,000 years as well. It's an old Sears Craftsman corded drill. The rest of this long bar is for sighting against the latheways. It's part of the alignment apparatus. So that's purely what the jig consists of. Here's what the box looks like as it's ready to be bored. The lid piece is on the chuck. The tail piece is in my hand. The base of the box is in my hand. I always want the lid to fit over the base so that whatever's in there doesn't get compromised. These are the tools I'm currently using for this work. The top one is a straight up scraper with a fairly steep angle. I have these in straight scrapers and negative rake. This is also a negative rake from Boxmaster. It's got about a 3/4 inch straight edge and then a slightly under 90 degrees. It turns the corner for another 1/4 inch of edge. And it's an extremely useful tool. So useful that I made its opposite number other-handed out of tool bar stock, which I also use sometimes. And this is a 1/2 inch spindle gouge, which is, I agree with Richard Raffan. Give me a 1/2 inch spindle gouge and I can turn almost anything. And these are the measuring tools, plastic vernier caliper, because you can't caliper magnets with a steel caliper, a metal caliper, they're going to stick to it. Steel rule for measuring inside the box. I use this rule for everything. Pencil and bamboo pieces that I can sharpen in the pencil sharpener and use those to tap magnets to exactly where I want them to be once they're in a hole. So here's the box, what it would look like on the lathe. You can see the alignment line, which I always line up to the center of the number 1 jaw in the chuck. So I can usually get pieces back the way they were. They are not out of round. If you don't do that with these cheap chucks, this is a one-way chuck, you're going to lose enough to have problems with making an accurate little box. So this is looking at the piece in the lathe, this is with the drill bit extended from the jig. Here I'm wanting first to make sure I'm close enough so the bit is going to pierce the wood. And second, I'm deciding where in the grain structure I want to make the 3 holes. And I'm deciding I'm going to make it right here through the longest part of the grain, and the other holes will be over here and over here. If I do it the other way, if I make the first hole where the grain is the shortest, then I'm introducing a weakness. And I've had boxes like this break out at that point right up there. This is a pretty clear view of what's going on here. Here's the operator eye view of the whole thing. You can see here's the ram, which is bearing on the tailstock, so it's allowing me to adjust this thing in this direction only. But really, I can put this where I need it and jam the tool rest up against it and tighten everything up, and it's usually pretty good. And I'm wanting to drill either on the line or just off the line, depending which set of holes I'm up for. But this is what I see when I'm operating this thing here. Here's after I drill the hole right on the line. I'm now fitting the box body into the lid, and I'm going to draw the hole. I'm going to trace through the hole, and I'm going to do that with all 3 holes. I want to know exactly where they are. Here's the view through the drill setup. You can see there's the pencil hole, and there's the layout line that it's on, and I'm intending to drill on the line that's just to the left of that, this line here. This is a 3/16 bit. I'm using 3/16 magnets for these size boxes in 3/16 diameter. The length ranges from an 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch. Aside from it being a convenient size, it's all obviously a popular size industrially because you can get these things in 1/10 of an inch. You can get them in, I don't know, a whole lot of length measurements, very small increments. So the magnets don't care if they're both the same size in a pairing. All they care is that the polarities are north-south to stick. So I fit the magnet either to the width of the thickness of the wood that I'm intending to leave once I'm done, because I'm installing these in the roughed out blank. And there's what you can see the one hole offset from the other there. That's what I'm after, accurately controlling that and having no way to get it wrong. Well, lots of ways to get it wrong, but this jig has really helped me out. And I can pivot that to drill at any angle I want to, so I could use it in a lot of different setups. But right now, it's set up to drill dead on center and dead at 90 degrees. That's what I want. There's that box finished, what we were looking at. This is canary wood. There it is open. And there's the other one that we've seen in the slideshow finished. This is maple from the tree from Grandview neighborhood. And there's that one closed. And that is the slideshow. Questions? Comments?
Yeah, John. I'm expecting you already do this based on your knowledge of magnets. But when you assemble it, before you epoxy one of the pairs, don't you want them to align by themselves to get strong north-south? It's not easy to do that on a round magnet. On a square magnet, it is. But I'm going to guess you've already solved that problem, John.
Yeah, the cylinders are magnetized. One end's north and the other end's south, so there's no rotational issue. And I install them all dry. The 3/16 bit I'm using happens to yield. If I make a clean push with the drill, and I don't let anything wiggle at all, and I get a clean hole, the magnet will sit in there tight. So I have a chance to tap it up and down. And what I want is to have the magnet, the mating surfaces, be separated by a little bit of wood on both sides, and I want to fill that in with epoxy or super glue so it makes a smooth finish at that point. So that's what my endeavor is. And as far as polarity goes, if you keep the stack the same way up, they're always connected. So as long as they'll stick, as long as one install one set, and if the magnets will stick on the outside, they'll stick on the inside if you don't rotate that stack. So that's the method of doing it. I don't care if it's north or south. I just care that it's A, B, A, B, A, B. Does that answer it?
Yeah, I knew you'd already have that problem solved, but what if you turn some dowels out of the same material as your box and then tried to insert the dowels as a cover up for the magnets?
I've been thinking about doing that. The issue there is grain direction. I would want the grain direction of each dowel to match the wood where it's going to fit in there. I'd be really trying to hide it. And I'd rather just, if I can't get it done with super glue, thick super glue, then that is what I'm going to do next.
John, do you reverse one set of magnets in polarity so that the lid only goes on in one direction, or do you not worried about that?
No, you can't control that. It doesn't work out. I've done it that way with some of the other boxes. I have a box that the lid will pop right off if you get it wrong. But these, they grab at any position.
John, why not turn that into a feature? Use a contrast. You know, you could use some epoxy with toner, black or color.
That's my next move. Tomorrow, Amazon is going to deliver some thick black gap filling super glue, and I'm going to try that. Yeah. I tried also. Super glue runs all over the place. What I tried doing is putting super glue in the hole and then putting a piece of tape on it. I thought that would work, but I didn't realize how much super glue shrinks as it dries. It shrinks a lot. There's always voids in there.
I've made a fair number of plugs for that kind of work with a South Bend engine lathe I have in the back room, and you grind a tool with a very high rake angle on it, and you can cut right through that end grain piece you cut up and put in a chuck in your South Bend, and you can turn it to the 1,000th of an inch to match your drill size.
I think I can do that myself with a caliper and a skew, actually.
You've got a pretty nice engine lathe in your shop, so.
I do have a little engine lathe. It needs a new motor, but when I put a new motor on it, it'll do it.
It would do that job perfectly, though.
Yeah.
Hey, John, have you ever considered making yourself a thin ring to mount your magnets in, and then use that as an insert in the lid? So you'd have a thin wall on your lid, but then you just glue the wood ring inside, and then you don't have any holes on the outside of your box.
Yes, I've considered that. And I may try that as well if I reach the end of the line on this what I'm currently doing. But I do have a set of drawings for how that would work as well. You'd be into some end grain gluing in that situation, which I would like to avoid.
Looks like we got an airplane.
Anybody else?
Looks like we got an airplane.
I'm going to go on to the hands. Thanks for letting me show that. David Hudjo, what do you have today?
I want to show you the spittoon.
Nice spalting.
It's a spalted maple that one of my students turned with my close supervision, and it really turned out quite nice. And I wish I hadn't given him this piece of wood.
Well, who gets to keep the spittoon, you or him?
He will.
And what's the underside look like? The base. Okay, he hasn't signed it.
No. He said he
Does-
can't write good, so I don't know.
What is he gonna? What does he see that bowl being for? A spittoon, or for salad, or for what?
I think just decorative.
Uh, questions for David?
Beautiful spalting.
What did your student use to turn that? Are you using bowl gouges?
Yes. 5/8 inch bowl gouge. I teach to turn the outside with a U-shaped gouge and the inside with a V-shaped gouge. I think that works better for me anyway.
And where are your students coming from? Is it like club students?
Yes, and local students in this area, yes.
Do you charge?
I'm good at teaching people how to go through the bottom of a bowl.
Do you do this like as a volunteer thing, teach people, or are you doing it like you for some bucks an hour, or what's your situation?
Both. I do the club. The club is all gratis, and the club has insurance to protect us all. And I also take paying people at $40 an hour with supplying all the wood, tools, etc.
Uh-huh. How did we had a long conversation last week about mentoring and demonstrating, and clubs struggling to find mentors and demonstrators. So how does your club approach this? I mean, are you qualified in some way to be a mentor? Do they certify you, or do you just step up and self-select?
Yes, no, we have a program of testing out people who want to be mentors and making sure that they're use safety techniques and are good turners. So I was one of the 2 mentors for my club, and so that's how it got started.
Is that something you offer to new members, all of them, generally?
Yes.
And what do you? I tried to develop something like that, or we've begun to talk about that in our club, and I offered for a short time a four morning introduction to turning for a new member, where we would demonstrate, and I would demonstrate, and then they would do, and we would do spindle turning, and we would do a simple bowl, and we would do a cup and a little end grain hollowing. Is it like that, or what is it that you do? What's the program?
Yes, I usually teach them the basics of spindle turning, but most everybody wants to do a bowl. And I have to tell a story. Ernie was my first teacher, and one of the comments he made to the class was, "You'll never sell a bowl." Well, I've sold hundreds of bowls, Ernie, so thanks for the teaching.
Any questions for Dave? Other comments on this?
There's no greater honor the student can pay the master than to exceed him.
Yes.
This is the first time I've ever found out that Ernie made a mistake.
Not our Ernie.
Not our.
Anybody else on this? While we're on it, anybody want to follow up on the mentoring and demonstrating conversation we had last week? I have the recording of that edited quite carefully, and I'm going to post that later today.
John.
Well, John, ironically,
it's Don here. As John knows, we had a Zoom meeting at the club last Tuesday night with Bert from over in Canada, and comments were made last week about you need to keep looking at your audience when you're demonstrating. Well, on Tuesday night, I think it proved the point that these days, now that you have the cameras and your videos set up, that really the mentor, the demonstrator doesn't have to necessarily always look at the audience, because if you look at the audience, they're not looking at you, they're looking at the VDU. So as long as you keep that conversation going, as I said last week, then you've got the audience in your hand, and they are committed to looking at the VDU, because it's far better looking at that, especially if you're at the back of the audience and can't see what the lathe's doing. You are looking at that VDU. So it's important, I think, that we do look at the audience, but it's more important these days that you keep talking about what you're doing and how you're doing it. I think Mike might agree with that.
Let's take a moment here to notice that using my Zoom license, Don in England and his club were able to watch a live demonstration performed from Edmonton in northwestern Canada. I find that thoroughly astonishing. And now I can watch the video of the whole thing on my screen here. It's a Dick Tracy future, I'm telling you, it's amazing.
It was a great evening. Although the club started off with a slight problem, we set the VDU up and we couldn't go online. We couldn't find out why until we realized that somebody put their foot through the plasma screen. So we had to go and get a new screen quickly.
How did you do that? Just go home and somebody screen at home, or what did you do?
Well, the screen has to be taken down every time and put into its box, and somebody must have just caught it with the toe of their heel or something, but we didn't know it until 20 minutes into trying to get onto the Zoom meeting. So
what did you do?
To get a new screen very quickly.
Well, how did you do that? Where did you get it?
The chairman ran home and picked up one he was going to throw in the skip the next morning.
Okay, how big a screen are we talking about here?
Our main screen is a 50-inch screen, and we ended up with a 40-inch one, so the picture wasn't quite so big as we would have normally seen it. Yeah. But the comments we've had through the club, it's a way I think can go with mentors outside and demonstrators outside of your country, even as long as they're coming on and getting a Zoom. It was a great evening. Bert did a great job.
Well, Dennis Belcher, who was our guest last week, argues that he needs to see the audience and get live feedback from the audience in order to interact with them in a way that he wants to do. I'm not sure he's right about that. I mean, I've seen, I know the way you're explaining it, for me, I can get the feedback I need off the screen. I can see all of you here.
Yeah. But Bert was getting questions thrown at him from the floor. And I believe, Bert, if he's still there, that person was actually highlighted. Is that right?
Well, I had a monitor. I was watching the video or watching my computer, and having a camera on your audience was really beneficial for me, because when somebody was talking, I could see them talking, and sometimes you had to repeat the question. But for me, it was really, really advantageous to be able to have a camera from your club so I could see your room. And I didn't look at it all the time, but when I heard something, I'd look and see which side of the room was talking. So for me, that was valuable. But you're right, with the audience, they're all looking at the VDU. They're not looking at the lathe.
I think that's a very important point for these kinds of things. I always try to make sure that in our club demos and things that we have a camera on the audience. We don't often show that part of the feed, but if the demonstrator wants to see it, we certainly would. That changes the experience entirely from my point of view. If you can see the audience and hear the questions and respond directly to the person, it's very, very helpful.
I did a lot of these during COVID, and when you have the gallery view, yes, you can see people's faces and expressions as the demonstrator, but when we went back to assembled meetings or hybrid meetings, I'm not sure I can remember a club that had an effective camera on the audience that being able to see the audience provided any benefit whatsoever to me.
Okay, that's interesting too.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mike. On a hybrid meeting, I agree with you 100%. But for this particular application, I'm in Canada and they're in the UK, so it was really valuable for me because it wasn't hybrid meeting. It was just me and a group somewhere else, and that was really valuable. But in a meeting room with this happening all in the same building, I think that would be really distracting.
The camera was actually set on top of the VDU facing the audience.
Yeah.
That's perfect, Don. That give me the perfect, it's just like I was sitting behind my lathe looking at the crowd in a meeting room. So that's really good point. Have the camera put right above your VDU so everybody's looking right into the camera. That's a really good point. Thanks for that, Don. I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah, it wasn't connected to the computer. It was to the VDU facing out to the audience.
I also like the current Zoom multi-speaker view. I used to try and get this to happen by spotlighting multiple people, but this is better. I'm right now able to see Bert, Mike, and Dawn large on the top half of my screen, and 44 other people on the bottom half in 3 rows of little thumbnails. So this is a very helpful view that's recently added to Zoom. I can even see Mike tapping on his phone.
Anyway.
Any more on this?
Once you finish that, John, can I just carry on for a minute?
Sure, go ahead.
You have just shown us a video of bowls with magnets. And I've just made a box.
Yeah.
With magnets.
Yeah. And that's exactly the way I don't want to make them. I want to hide those magnets when they're in that orientation. Right. And I used to do that by making a 3-part blank.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the point I wanted to make on this one is where you offset yours, I just push my magnets slightly below the center so that they still make that connection.
Yep.
And the grain matches.
That's a nice piece. That's a nice piece.
And
what I find limiting in that construction really is the thickness. The wall thickness is determined by the magnet, so you're doomed to have a fairly thick wall.
Yeah, from underneath the rim on here, it's just about 8 millimeters thick. The magnets are 5 millimeters long, and the wall thickness is about 1/4 inch all the way around the bowl.
Well,
this is the second one.
Here's another one made that same way, except here the magnets are inside the wood in both places, in both parts. Let me see, I gotta get in front of my face. And that's done by making a 3-part blank and then boring in from the back of the middle part and reassembling it. So this way, the magnets are entirely inside the wood.
Right, yeah.
But you still are stuck with the thickness. You can't get away from making a thick box. This is about as good as I was able to do with that style.
Yeah.
Because you don't see the glue line on this one. You really have to hunt for it.
And just one other thing. 2 weeks ago, you were showing handles.
Yeah. There you go. That's the handle, all right.
These are 2 bells that we made from drawings that Bert sent, but they're two small handles. This one's about 2.25 inches long. This one's just over 1.25 inches. And the bells.
Do they ring? Do they clap? Ring? Can't hear it.
Can't hear it.
No.
But it does ring.
I think
they do ring. But yeah, that's how we go.
That's all right, it's wet. It's wet.
So that's that same classic handle shape that the Shakers use. That's that 18th century handle shape.
Yeah, it's just different handles you make as you go along. I tend to make a mistake and just carry on the mistake and finish the handle with the mistake in it, which you wouldn't know is a mistake when it's finished. Anyway, I did have some photos, but yours gave as much away as mine will do. So thanks very much, John. And thank you for your link. It was much appreciated. You will be getting a letter.
Thank you much. I'll watch the video later on. Okay, I'm going to go back to a gallery view and see who else wants to talk here. Sherry Wilets, haven't heard from you in a while. What's up with you?
Hi. I am going to try my first screen share, so let me see if I do it right.
You feeling any better, Sherry?
I am. The last 3 days, things have kind of turned around. So yes, I'm feeling much better.
Okay, we're seeing that now. If you make that picture full screen rather than, we'll see it bigger.
Okay, that part I'm not.
The green dot up here.
Sorry?
You click the green dot, it should get to full screen.
Okay, I don't have a green dot right
Yeah,
now.
you do. It's on the upper left.
Upper left.
Oh, way over here. Way over in the side over there.
There?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I don't know, a year or so ago, I showed you guys I was trying to nail this multi-axis kind of piece with the the dome in the middle, and then a sort of a crescent moon shape around the outside, etc. And it took me, I don't know, 25 or 30 tries to kind of get what I was reasonably pleased with. And then it's like, well, now what do I do with them? So I wanted to try embellishing them. So this is just one that I grabbed the other day. And there's the next shot. So I took my pyrography pen and I just bent a piece of nichrome wire and basically branded in a bunch of little odd shapes.
Well, I'm seeing a wire brush there. What are you doing with that?
Cleaning off the pyrography tip as I burn. So every 3 or 4 times I just quickly wipe the tip on the wire brush to remove the carbon. Otherwise it insulates and then it doesn't brand properly.
You're not brushing the wood with that.
No, not touching the wood with that. And then I took a carving burr and I burned a bunch of little kind of bubbly shapes in the middle. And there I used a few different sizes and kept doing the same thing to add some interest. And that didn't, I mean, it's interesting, but it didn't quite do it for me. So then I thought, okay, well, I'll color the whole thing black, which I did there, which I think kind of dressed it up a little. And then I tried my first attempt at dry brushing. So it's not finished yet, but put some
That's gorgeous.
dry brush.
That got gorgeous in the middle there. What did you do?
Yeah. So that's a technique I just recently learned about, basically from watching YouTube. It's called dry brushing. So essentially you take, I used acrylic paint that is about the thickness of toothpaste. So it's very, very thick. And you just dip the end of a very stiff paintbrush into the paint. And then you wipe off as much paint as possible. So it basically looks like your brush is completely dry. And then you just brush it perpendicular across the surface, so as not to get any paint down into the holes, but only to kind of hit the facets or the high points. And then you just do coat after coat after coat. It starts out, doesn't look like you're getting anything on it, but if you keep at it, eventually it builds up. And so I think that's got about 10 layers. I know it sounds like a lot. It doesn't take a lot of time, but I think I'm going to try putting another 10 on there and see what happens. So,
are you going to do anything to bring back the burning around in the outer ring there? Or are you okay with it being subtle like that?
I think on the next piece, I'll try something different. So I'm just, like I said, I made 25 or 30 of these. So I'm just going to keep trying different things until I figure out what I like. So, and initially the ones I made were from very highly figured maple. And so I was able to use the translucent dyes and you've seen how you can really make that almost appear 3D, and it's quite beautiful. But when I was practicing with all these other pieces, I just used plain wood. So you can't use the translucent dyes on the plain wood. So that's now I'm trying some stuff with paint to see where I can get. So who knows? But anyways, that's what I did.
And what's the diameter of this?
About 12.5 inches.
Now, why can't you use translucent dyes on plain wood?
Because the only, like not to get the effect that I want, because those
Oh, you need a dark background. Yeah.
well, but with when you have highly figured wood, typically you'll put on a the black dye first, and then sand it all off, and that dye kind of wicks into some of the grain more than other parts of the grain, and then as you add other colors, you get that like the chatoyance really starts to stand out, and you get really just a really neat effect. But it absolutely does not work on just plain wood or a rough surface. The dyes just go in and create just a really matte like finish that does not reflect any light at all, and it just looks very amateurish. So I'm trying to make them look a little more elegant, and so this I just discovered this dry brush thing, and it looks plausible.
How were you able to keep those 10 coats of dry brushing without touching that surrounding black area?
Actually, yeah, it was very easy. That center area is a dome, and I was just using like a tiny little paintbrush. And as I said, it's the brush is essentially dry. If you look at it, it doesn't look like you've even got any paint on it. But as you drag it across the surface, layer after layer after layer, each one just kind of builds up a tiny, tiny bit. And yeah, it wasn't difficult on this one.
Wow,
so
that's amazing. You didn't get it on any of the black area outside of that dome. That's impressive.
It is, because I seem to get it on my hands, in my ears, all the surfaces around me, but yes, I'm not sure. Anyhow.
What are you doing with these things, Sherry?
I have a big closet that I keep them in.
Do you sell them? Do you show them in galleries?
I do have some stuff that I sell in a small gallery, but these, this is kind of an experiment. And as I said, I'm trying to elevate what I'm doing. And so eventually I hope to make some really good ones and then sell them. But mostly, I like the making. I don't like the selling. If someone asks me for one, I'm happy to, but to go to markets and all that stuff, it's way too peoply. I'm much happier just tinkering away in my shop.
I know exactly how you feel.
So, anyway.
Sherry, beautiful work.
Thank you.
Is that a plate, or is there a bowl underneath that?
It's a platter, so it's about 2.5 inches thick. So I found any thicker, and then they just get too heavy. So sometimes I do some funky stuff on the back, but this one is just a plain round back. There's no foot or anything on it. It's intended to be, as I said, just a little platter that either you could hang on the wall or put on a plate stand, I guess.
Yeah, just absolutely beautiful. That center area where you did the dry brush, did you drill a series of holes, different sizes to get that?
Yeah, they look like holes, but they're actually bubbles. So I just got a micro motor, and then I bought some little bits, and I think they're called eye cutters. So they're what the carvers that carve birds and everything do. It's a little cut burr, and it makes a bubble, a little dome, and then cuts just deeper around the outside of it. And so again, after I textured that surface, and then I painted the whole thing black, and then you use that dry brushing technique, because you're brushing sort of sideways across the surface with very little paint on your brush. The paint doesn't get down inside the holes. It only hits the high points. And then you get that kind of 3D effect.
Wow.
Sherry.
So that cutter is more like a cup, and it creates a bubble. Wow,
yes, exactly. It's called a cup burr, I think. So there's some call them cup burrs. And You can get some, apparently there's like someone told me MDI is some sort of a wood carving supplier, and they sell them. They were actually, those particular ones that they sell, as I understand, are actually made for doing stuff with jewelry. And so when you get those cup burrs, if you look at the cup itself, the edge of it is flat. And so you have to put those in your rotary tool handpiece and then sharpen them, because otherwise when you press it down into the wood, it just skips across the surface of the wood because of that little flat edge. So you have to sharpen those. And then as I said, I bought a couple of bits from a carving place that like bird carvers do. That's where they pick up their supplies. And this particular thing was called an eye cutter. And as I understand it, they use it for cutting eyes on birds. And those ones do not apparently need sharpening, which is good because I have no idea how to sharpen them.
How many sizes of those things do you have?
Like there's a lot of different sizes you can get, and I found it was less expensive to just buy a kit, and the little kit had 8 in them. But I think I only used 4 here because 4 of them had a small shaft in them, and the other 4 had a 1/4-inch shaft in them, and the 1/4-inch shaft is yeah, my rotary tool is just not strong enough to drive that. So I'm not quite sure what, I don't know. I got more experimentation is needed. And then the tiniest little bits you see there were done with a pyrography, a little, but basically a cup burr, but a pyrography pen. So the 3 bigger, there's 4 different sizes that, if you look really closely, of little bubbles in there. And
I don't have the picture up right now. Do you have the plate right there? Can you hold it up?
Sorry. Oh yeah, I do.
Because I'd like to see it at a little bit of an angle, so I can. Okay, now tip it at an angle so I can see the height of these things, what these things look like in 3D.
Like, am I doing it right?
So it cuts down in. I was thinking it reduced to a common surface, but I see now. I see what they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the back. As I said, it's just plain. I didn't do anything to the back at all. And those are just little bubbles, as I said. And what the trick with using that cup burr thing is you gotta drive it like far down into the wood so that the very top of the little bubble isn't flat. So you gotta, push it all the way in, and then it will make it a dome. And that just helps again, when you do the dry brushing, your brush will just kind of wick across the very top of the bubble, and that helps create that funky effect.
Sherry, could I encourage you to not limit your pieces that you send to the shop by your own judgment, because that is beautiful as it is. And one of my tendencies is to say it's not good enough to sell. And then somebody else says, oh my God, even though you may not think it's good enough to sell, you may as well store it on a shop shelf as opposed to your closet. And you'd be amazed at how many people would say that. So it's beautiful work, and it's already, as far as I'm concerned, you put some, however you finish it, you could put that in a shop right now, and there'd be people that would just be blown away and be willing to take it off. So, don't limit yourself by your own internal judgment. I do it all the time.
Well, I appreciate your comments. Thanks. I'll think about that.
Jerry, I totally agree with Doug. He's spot on. And just one suggestion, looking at the back, if you were to set up some way to hang that would be, I mean, just a whole collection of them on the wall would be just amazing. I mean, they're beautiful.
I was imagining perhaps like you can get some sort of a D-hanger or something that I think and I was thinking, okay.
There's a special router bit that does, I forget what they call it, that does that opening in the back that you could put it in the wood itself, and it'd be really simple.
Oh, okay, that's a
keyhole
good
bit.
idea.
Keyhole, yeah, thank you. That's it.
Okay,
Keyhole
well,
router bit.
appreciate all your comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sherry. Don Svob. I'm gonna replace the spotlight here if I can figure out. There you go. You're on, Don.
Good morning. I've done some nesting bowls, so here's the little one.
Okay.
And here's the mate to it. And these came out of a burl that was given to me.
What's the kind of wood is it?
Maple.
Okay. Hold it.
And I finished
Stop
the bottom.
waving it around. Hold it still first. Hold it still at each. Yeah, hold it there. Okay.
I
So
put legs on the bottom.
Did you add those on, or?
Because yes, I added 3 legs because it's pretty hard to get a good mount off of bark, and that was actually the problem I was having, is trying to hold the bark for the bowl. It's actually thicker than I would like, but because of the shape of the burl, it's very difficult to keep it from blowing through the bottom. So as a set, you can see you've got all 4 of them sitting there floating a little bit. And then on the bottom of the bowls,
Did you say there's 4?
there's 3 pieces.
Okay.
Two little bowls and 3 pieces.
Nice work. What's the finish?
I start off with antique oil, and then I put 2 coats of spray Minwax poly.
Okay. Questions for Don?
And I wanted to say, Sherry, those are beautiful pieces you've done.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I see Janet with her hand up. Janet doesn't talk much. Let's go to Janet. What do you have to say?
Oh, just a quick comment. Also, too, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sherry. Beautiful, beautiful work. Keep going for it. It's gorgeous. But a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Richard Raffan and his videos, or I was talking about it, and I mentioned that he was showing how to shear scrape on the inside of a bowl. And I found a video that he put up not that long ago where he turns a bowl out of ash completely with scrapers. Now, anybody that turns knows that that would not be fun. And he even says that he would never, he's never done it before. But the reason I brought that up is I put the link to that video in the chat. And it is, he shows several times how to hold the tool to shear scrape on the inside of the bowl. And it's pretty good instruction. You know, we're talking about teaching and demonstrating, and my experience in the times that I've taught, that sometimes if you say something 2 or 3 different ways, everybody's going to catch on how to do it. But he does show really clearly, the video is pretty good on how he holds that tool to shear scrape on the inside of the bowl, right near the rim where we have that trouble sometimes with torn grain. So I did put that in the chat.
All right, I see it there, and I've got it on the screen. It'll show in the recording too.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Mike Peace.
I don't have any great works of art, but I made this. I had a plastic napkin holder in the kitchen that I just was chintzy looking, and I finally thought, I need to make one out of wood. So I turned a little platter, cut it almost in half. I wanted one side taller than the other, and had a little spacer block, and had to experiment a little bit with the height. I discovered that the napkins we were using were not square. I think they were 5 3/4 by 6 1/2.
And how did you make that bead? Did you use beading tool or do it with the point of the?
No, all these beads are just done with a point tool, maybe to start it, and then spindle gouge.
Okay.
And this was a glued up blank, so it's got striations on it that somebody had given me. So it was what I had as a board, 3/4 inch board. This was too thick, actually. This was like 1 inch, and I probably should have taken it down more. And then the bottom, you want the bottom fairly thin because you need the sides sticking up. So you don't want to use a 3/4 inch board up for the bottom. You want to use something a little smaller, but fun project. And then the other item, somebody sent me a piece. He said it was jar wood. Some other people took issue with that, but kind of a square catch-all men's valet bowl. That's it.
You want to hold that back up? Yeah. And again, the beads, those beads are done with the point, start with the point tool and then finish them with the gouge, or how do you do those? You're muted now. We've lost your sound.
This outer bead, actually, I did with a D-weight tool. This one, I did with a spindle gouge. I do find on cross grain bowl type of work, I find it easier for me to mark the bead with a point tool and then come in there and do it rather than just free form it.
That's what I do too. You know.
We see the bottom of that bowl.
Okay, recess checking.
Yes.
Okay.
Does the four corners hit the bottom, or is there a bottom? How does that sound?
You've got to reduce the bottom here a little bit so it'll touch on all four corners, because you really don't want this part rubbing on the table. It doesn't take much. Doesn't take much. As long as you don't do anything with it out here on the sides. You just take this down a 1/16 of an inch or so, and you're fine.
Doesn't look like you signed it. You should sign your stuff.
No, actually I did. It just doesn't show up real well. I burn it. I think I've got it. Where did I put it? I can't even see it in the light in here. I've got it in here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. Here's my name. You just can't see it.
I see it now, yeah.
Yeah.
In there
Yeah,
somewhere.
I put the year sometimes in some of the work. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go back to the gallery view. I see Michael Zaire has his hand up, but he's not on screen. So come on back, Michael, if you can hear me. Meanwhile, I'm just going to ask the room a quick question. Is there any sanding sealer that you guys ever use before you use Osmo, or does Osmo not work with a sanding sealer?
Osmo, I think when you read the information on it, is designed to go in raw wood. If you put a sanding sealer on, then the oil component is prevented from going into the wood and you end up with just a surface wax.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, Osmo you put on bare wood.
Okay. I'm going to go to Michael Zaire. What are you holding up there, Michael?
Tips and tricks. I use a Fibonacci gauge to do my layouts. It's one of the most useful tools in my shop.
Wait a minute. You're a little bit off. How do you use that? Is that
the way you use it is I'll start off, for instance, with a globe. I'll figure out what the diameter of the globe is to determine the height of the overall ornament, and then this will then determine what the distance is to the different points of the elements.
And is that set up to use the golden section?
Yes, yeah, the golden rule. Yes.
Okay, so the middle point is 5/8 of the way roughly, and the other one is 5/8, 3/8 division roughly.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a really handy shop tool to have.
Can we see the whole thing so I can see how it fits together? I'm not seeing the whole tool. We still don't quite. Okay, now I got it. I see how you're making that now. Do you have measurements for these parts somewhere that you could share with us?
I do, yes.
You want to put them in the chat or send them to me and I'll send them out?
I'll send them to you, John.
Okay, because I'm going to be sending out a package of video links and Don Smith's drawing and whatever you send me on this, and anything else anybody wants to send to the group, get them to me today if you would, and it'll all go out tonight probably or tomorrow. Any questions for Michael?
Yeah, Michael, your base is looks like it's very, very stable with that ornament swinging. Do you put any extra weight in your bases?
No, the ornament is just centered directly over the insert point of the wire into the base.
Pure geometry.
Yeah.
Nice. It's a nice ornament. Nice work.
Thank you. It's this year's Christmas ornament.
How many are you going to make?
I made 20 of them.
Wow. Okay. Any questions for Michael?
Can he raise the camera so we can see the top of his metal loop?
Sure.
There you go. That's it.
Right.
There we are.
Nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Is that 4 pieces or is that just 3 pieces?
The ornament itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
The ornament, the top is 1 piece, the bottom is another piece, and then the globe is 1 piece. You turn that, it's a cube, you turn point to point.
Uh-huh. Right.
And then the bottom finial, what I have is about a 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch shaft that goes through a hole here and up into the top to glue the whole thing together.
So there's 3 pieces of wood connected with a bored through hole. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Michael? Okay. I'm going to take the spotlight off you and give Bowman the last 3 minutes. What do you got, Jim?
I want to say thank you to Doug for coming by this week. And we had a great day in the shop cutting through this burl. One of the things we learned, and we were talking about this before the program started, about coring tools throwing our blanks off of whatever we mounted. Doug and I went through a number of different iterations. The final one, which the good engineer himself kind of figured out. If you can understand this drawing, the pink is a waste block on which we've screwed a faceplate. We had turned a recess, but a catch would just throw it right out of the groove. A 3/8 inch groove wouldn't hold this heavy blank. This is a full 15 by maybe 6-8 inches deep. So Doug said, I said, let's glue it in. So what we did is we glued it with epoxy, but we made the shoulder on it, and the inner circle fits tightly. It fits tight in that slot or recess, which now had been destroyed. And then we glued it there, and then Doug went and put hot glue around the edge too. And I tell you, it's still on, and I don't think it'll rip off. So we got extra tight here and tight there. I just wanted to say in our conversation earlier that was my rough sketching, and you can see why you don't see very many of mine. So again, my comment is thanks for mentors. Hang on a second. And Doug, we ended up kind of collaborating in the process, so that felt good too. But Doug was watching very closely over my chisel handling. He does it a bit different than me, and I have to learn it. So yeah.
Let's hear it for shop visits. Nice. There's nothing like a shop visit. Good cup of coffee and fool around on the lathe for a while. I've been doing more and more of it myself, and welcoming people here who want to visit. It's fun. Makes a nice morning.
I enjoy it. Yeah, I had to get Doug a cup of tea at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He's from Canada, so I guess they have tea breaks there. So
could I just make a comment, Jim, on that as a mentor, when I do it, I actually prefer to do it in the person's shop that I'm trying to teach. I know there's a lot of people who may be new, but the reason for that is that way you see them in their own environment. And rather than trying to explain it in your environment, being able to explain to work with somebody in their own environment really makes a big difference as a teacher, to see where a person's comfortable with their own lathe, what adjustments they can do on their own piece of equipment, instead of trying to do it with you.
I prefer it the other way around. If I'm going to try and show somebody something, I want tools that I can use as opposed to their tools that I can't use.
Well, Jim, John, I agree with you taking your own tools if that's the case, because that's a different, and I do that too, but I still, and I agree with the lathe question, but it's still useful to see
it is
just to see their body position and everything and how they're doing it in their own shop makes a big difference to me.
I like to see their wood stash too. That tells you a lot about people.
Yeah, one of the things I've done with people that have come to my shop, I ask them to please bring their own tools. And so the project that we try and do, we let them use their tools to make the project. And then right away, if we find there's an issue, that I can help them sharpen it or show them the shape. I can show them the shape of the tools I use, but we make sure that the project can be done with the tools that they have when they go home. Then they're comfortable to try it, even if they have a catch and something happens. But at least they're using their own tools, so they have the confidence to get out there and try it and have some fun.
When they come to your shop with their own tools, they're going to be bringing them in a bag so they can take some wood away too, I hope.
Yeah, but you've seen my shop. I would never notice it if something disappeared. You've seen my shop, John.
I much prefer somebody who's trying to help me to come to my shop. And obviously it has to be a good friend to appear in my shop and put up with it. But I just learn more because anyways, thanks, Doug. It was a great day, and I'm hoping to finish that burl now. I'm going to go out and try to get another core out of it. We'll see how well that holds.
Jim, I got a question on your drawing. On that, on the recess for your wood block, you said you epoxied that in to that wood block?
Yes, I use thick epoxy. I use thick epoxy. That's my go-to for gluing blocks. Doug's go-to apparently is hot glue. I add hot glue now based on you guys worrying about my propellers taking off.
Jim, how do you intend to get that out?
We'll have to turn it out. Yeah, the recess was screwed up anyways. A bunch of chunks of wood came off of it. It's partly a burl issue, I guess, with the grain direction.
I know Jim's saying he used thick epoxy, but I could have sworn that his thick epoxy came out of a CA glue bottle.
I said it wrong. It came out of a CA glue bottle. It was. I never did use epoxy. Sorry. CA glue thick.
And your faceplate, what's the diameter on that? Is that a 4-inch or?
Yeah, I think it was a 4-inch.
Okay.
4.5, something like that.
Yeah, I'm having the same problems you are, so
well, you ought to have a shop visit and work it out.
Get Doug to come over. He has a lot of experience with chunks that go away.
Visit each other. Bring coffee. Bring donuts. You can't.
Well, actually, I was thinking. Well, I'm just outside of Philadelphia. I was thinking of one of the shop days. I'll come to Lancaster and bring all my setup and everything.
You're probably closer to Jim's place than I am. So there you go. See you all next week.
See you next week.
Thank you,
John.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody.
Whoa.